Welcome back to Cowboys Nation News, where today we dive into another significant and admittedly frustrating update on Micah Parsons and his contract situation with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're a fan of the team, or even just a casual follower of the NFL, this story has all the tension, drama, and uncertainty that makes professional football news both fascinating and occasionally exasperating. To set the stage, Adam Schefter, one of the most trusted voices in NFL reporting, provided the latest insight into what appears to be a precarious relationship between the Cowboys front office and Parsons' camp. According to Schefter, while a deal could technically happen, there is zero current indication that it will, and the narrative has shifted from negotiations to a possible divorce between the two sides. That's a term Schefter used not lightly, and it carries with it a weight that fans don't hear often unless something is truly amiss. Historically, when we look back at similar situations, this language isn't entirely new in Dallas. For instance, both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb experienced tense contract situations, though the coverage and fan reaction varied. In Dak's case, the headlines back in 2010, even if exaggerated, hinted at a looming separation, and at one point, reporters indicated that the Cowboys and Dak were headed toward free agency discussions. In comparison, the Parsons situation feels eerily similar in tone, but distinct in scale, because we're talking about one of the most impactful defensive players in the league today, a game changer who has redefined what an edge rusher can do in multiple facets of the game. Since Parsons requested a trade, both sides have effectively stopped communicating. Micah Parsons' camp has reportedly indicated they will not initiate further conversations, putting the onus entirely on the Jones family to make the next move. This standoff is concerning for a couple of reasons. First, it demonstrates a certain organizational failure. For a team that was reportedly very close to finalizing a deal months ago, to now be at a complete standstill is both embarrassing and frustrating for fans, analysts, and anyone paying attention to how elite NFL talent should be managed. The Cowboys have a storied history of ambitious maneuvers in player negotiations, but this situation exposes a disconnect between the front office's approach and the players' expectations. Second, the emotional and relational dynamics are intense. Hurt feelings and bruised egos seem to dominate this narrative. Parsons' camp understandably may feel more aggrieved than the Jones family. From the outside, it seems as though Jerry Jones might believe a simple phone call can resolve the impasse. But in reality, the magnitude of the situation is far beyond that. Negotiating with elite talent in today's NFL, especially generational talent like Parsons, requires nuance, timing, and a willingness to bridge gaps beyond standard contract terms. Money, of course, remains a critical factor. A deal in the range of $45 million per year could resolve many of the issues at play. But even with money on the table, relationships and trust remain fragile. The percentage chance of a deal being finalized at this stage is difficult to quantify, and opinions are understandably divided among experts. One path forward involves the Cowboys reaching out proactively to Parsons' camp and acknowledging that mistakes have been made. In this scenario, the Cowboys could offer a slightly shorter contract, perhaps 4 years instead of 5, with top-tier guarantees and a per-year average in the $45 million range. If structured correctly, such a deal would still provide Dallas with significant control over Parsons' future through mechanisms like the fifth-year option and franchise tag. Strategically, it could also allow the team to manage their salary cap more effectively. Historically, players in Parsons' position almost never turn down generational wealth, even if there are personal grievances or questions about the organization. The alternative path is the one that mirrors Dak Prescott's situation more closely. If a deal is not reached before the start of the season, Parsons could end up playing under the franchise tag, which would preserve the Cowboys' flexibility but delay long-term security for the player. In that case, the conversation about his future might shift toward a trade scenario next offseason. While this path isn't impossible, it comes with considerable risk.
From a strategic standpoint, playing out the season under attack without resolving the relationship fully could lead to performance distractions, media speculation, and further tension in the locker room. The impact of such a scenario isn't limited to Parsons alone. It could ripple through the defensive unit, influencing how players prepare, interact, and perform. Having one of the league's premier defensive players in an unsettled contract situation could have subtle but meaningful effects on team chemistry. Beyond the financial and relational considerations, there's also the matter of optics. For the Cowboys, a team with a high-profile owner, a demanding fan base, and a reputation for wanting to control narratives, being publicly seen as at an impasse with a generational talent is not ideal. It feeds into criticism of the front office's decision-making, particularly around player relations and contract strategy. Fans have long expected the Cowboys to make bold moves to retain elite talent, but being stuck in a visible stalemate damages confidence, even among the most loyal supporters. And while all this unfolds, the media is actively covering every twist and turn, amplifying pressure on both sides. Each statement from Schefter, Todd Archer, and other analysts is dissected, leading to speculation, debate, and a sometimes overwhelming sense of drama around what is ultimately a negotiation. From a purely football perspective, the Cowboys still have options. They control Parsons' rights under the fifth-year option and potentially 2 consecutive franchise tags. This control provides leverage, but leverage alone doesn't always translate into productive outcomes if trust and goodwill are absent. The longer this situation lingers without communication, the more difficult it becomes to reach an amicable resolution, which is why the term divorce keeps surfacing. It's not about whether Parsons is talented, he undeniably is. It's about the relationship dynamics, timing, and organizational willingness to prioritize reconciliation over pride. Some observers argue that, realistically, the deal could still be done if the Cowboys structure it correctly, approach the negotiations with humility, and offer the guarantees and compensation that Parsons deserves. Others believe that egos on both sides may prevent such a resolution until circumstances force it, potentially next off-season. Either way, the current status is far from ideal. For Cowboy fans, it's a stressful position. You want your team to succeed on the field, but when a cornerstone defensive player is in a protracted negotiation limbo, it casts a shadow over preparation, morale, and expectations. Every fan conversation, social media post, and analysis segment seems to circle back to one question. Will the Cowboys and Micah Parsons finally reach a deal, or are we headed toward a more contentious resolution that could reshape the team's defensive future? Even with Schefter's expertise and insider knowledge, the answer remains uncertain. This uncertainty inevitably trickles down to every layer of the team, from rookies learning the system to veterans whose confidence in organizational decision-making might be shaken. Historically, the Cowboys have seen similar moments of tension in high-profile negotiations, and the outcomes have been mixed. Players like Tony Romo, DeMarcus Ware, and even more recently Dak Prescott faced contract scenarios that tested the organization's ability to retain top talent without fracturing locker room harmony. In each instance, the resolution, or lack thereof, had measurable effects on.
If the Cowboys approach the negotiation strategically, with clear communication, creative structuring, and a focus on restoring trust, a resolution remains possible. Constructing a deal with guaranteed money, incentives for performance, and mechanisms that protect both sides could satisfy Parsons' expectations while ensuring the organization retains flexibility. Successful precedent exists. Past NFL negotiations have demonstrated that when players feel valued, respected, and secure, performance often exceeds expectations, enhancing team success and fan engagement alike. Another factor worth noting is the evolving landscape of media influence. Social media, podcasts, and round-the-clock coverage mean that every update, rumor, or misstep is amplified, creating a pressure cooker environment for all parties. Parsons, as a highly visible player with considerable influence, is fully aware of this dynamic, and his camp is likely navigating the negotiation with media awareness as a strategic tool. For the Cowboys, the challenge is managing not only the contract itself, but also the narrative surrounding it. How the organization communicates publicly, or chooses not to, will shape perceptions, fan sentiment, and even internal morale. In some ways, the negotiation becomes a story as much as a business transaction, a balancing act between controlling optics and pursuing the best strategic outcome. Moreover, the implications of this standoff extend beyond a single season. The Cowboys must consider roster construction, future draft planning, and cap management, all in light of uncertainty surrounding Parsons' long-term commitment. Decisions about other defensive players, emerging talent, and potential free agent acquisitions are intertwined with the outcome of this negotiation, creating a web of dependencies that underscores the high stakes involved. For fans and analysts alike, the situation is a case study in the interplay of talent, leverage, communication, and strategic foresight. It highlights how modern NFL organizations must navigate complex, human, financial, and competitive dimensions simultaneously. Parsons' performance on the field has made him a franchise-defining player, and a negotiation over his contract is now defining the franchise in a different, equally critical way. The ultimate resolution will not just be about dollars and years. It will signal how the Cowboys manage elite talent, navigate adversity, and reconcile organizational pride with pragmatic decision-making. In the meantime, the league watches closely. Competitors observe the dynamics, gauging how Dallas handles both internal friction and public scrutiny. Other elite players and agents note the level of flexibility or rigidity exhibited by the Cowboys, shaping future expectations and negotiations across the NFL landscape. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers around the NFL landscape have intensified dramatically following the stunning revelation that Aaron Rodgers has officially signed with the Dallas Cowboys, a move that has sent shockwaves through both the NFC and the wider football community. Fans and analysts alike are buzzing, trying to decode the implications of this blockbuster transfer, which could fundamentally reshape the balance of power in the conference. Rodgers, widely celebrated for his unparalleled precision, uncanny field vision, and ability to orchestrate last-minute comebacks, is now
As a quarterback of Rodgers' stature, carries not only skill, but a commanding presence, capable of reshaping locker room dynamics, influencing draft strategies, and redefining team identity. Every press conference, training session, and team meeting is now viewed through the lens of anticipation, with pundits and enthusiasts attempting to detect subtle signs of synergy, friction, or unforeseen challenges. The broader league has taken notice, with rival franchises reportedly adjusting scouting reports, defensive schemes, and off-season priorities in response to the news, acknowledging that Rodgers' entry into Dallas could have ripple effects across the entire NFC. Rumors also suggest clandestine meetings between coaches and Rodgers to refine playbooks and identify key matchups, reflecting a strategic depth that fans can only speculate about, fueling an ongoing narrative that the Cowboys are positioning themselves for sustained supremacy under Rodgers' guidance. The media frenzy has intensified as outlets across the country dissect every facet of this high-profile acquisition, offering analysis, conjecture, and speculation that borders on feverish excitement. Columnists and commentators are diving into potential statistical outcomes, projecting the Cowboys' offensive metrics under Rodgers' command, and debating how his unique decision-making style might interact with the team's current roster. Rumors about his potential chemistry with emerging stars are circulating rapidly, with fans imagining highlight reel touchdowns, improbable comebacks, and a revitalized franchise identity. Sports podcasts, talk shows, and online forums are abuzz with detailed predictions, some suggesting that Rodgers could single-handedly tip the scales in the NFC, while others caution that adaptation to a new environment might pose challenges that could temper immediate dominance. Despite the speculative nature of these discussions, the underlying consensus is that Rodgers' arrival represents a transformative moment for the Cowboys, with potential implications that extend beyond a single season to encompass legacy building, playoff ambitions, and the broader competitive landscape. Fan engagement has reached unprecedented levels, with merchandise sales, ticket inquiries, and social media interactions surging as supporters attempt to align themselves with what is perceived as a historic shift in the franchise's trajectory. Even casual observers are now compelled to follow practices, interviews, and preseason developments, as the rumor of Rodgers' dominance has effectively created a nationwide spectacle, blending hope, hype, and uncertainty into a narrative that is impossible to ignore. The ongoing debate over his impact has become a cultural touchstone in the football world, with Rodgers' every move scrutinized, celebrated, or analyzed, reinforcing the idea that the Cowboys' NFC ambitions may never have looked so tantalizingly achievable.
As training camps progress and preseason games approach, insiders are hinting at subtle but significant shifts in strategy that suggest the Cowboys are leveraging Rodgers' unique talents to the fullest. Observers speculate that offensive coordinators have been reworking schemes, emphasizing short, precise passing routes, high-tempo drives, and creative play designs aimed at exploiting Rodgers' uncanny ability to read defenses and execute under pressure. Rumors indicate that practices are now intense exercises in situational awareness, adaptability, and mental agility, with Rodgers reportedly taking a hands-on approach to mentoring quarterbacks and receivers, ensuring that timing, trust, and synchronization reach optimal levels.